I mean, you're talking about a fundamental reset, rowing back on key policies. Should the Chancellor go, in your opinion?
I think I think he needs to be given space. I think the last thing we need at this moment is even more turbulence with a change of personnel. What we need to do, certainly as a parliamentary party, I think is take a deep breath, stay calm, and allow the Chancellor and the Prime Minister now to have a look at this, make the announcements they're going to make, give them the opportunity to come forward with this OBR forecast at the end of the month. Now, of course, they've got to get all those things right. And there is the chance that they get them wrong. But if they can get them right and they can reset them with the markets, then I think there's an opportunity to create a platform on which we can build going forward.
That there is going to be a medium-term fiscal plan. The government's going to be laying out all of the proposals as to how to balance the books, as to how to move forward in the medium term, reduce debt as a percentage of our overall GDP. That is what we got coming up on the 31st of October, so we won't have long to wait to see how this is all going to play out over the coming years.
So just to clarify, there will not be any move on corporation tax?
Look, the government is determined to move
respectfully,
ahead.
Minister, it's a yes, no, or I don't know. Will there be a change in corporation tax?
But there's no change to plans in corporation tax.
Thank you.
Sticking with corporation tax or not?
Well, I mean, the Chancellor will come to the dispatch box. I think it's absolutely right that we have made it clear that we want to invest in businesses. And when people talk about, taxing businesses, I think sometimes there's this idea that they're some faceless entities. These are people. These are employees. These are the organisations that help people pay their bills. And actually, they have been under a huge amount of pressure. I talked to the businesses in my constituency. They have really felt the pressure. And it's absolutely right that we help them stay competitive.
Rishi Sunak had planned a rise in corporation tax. Liz Truss cancelled it. Will that definitely remain cancelled? Definitely, corporation tax is not going to rise.
Well, not having the rise is extremely good policy. Bear in mind that cutting corporation tax from 28% down to 19% led to about a 50% increase in corporation tax revenues and an increase in corporation tax as a percentage of GDP. So it actually provided more money to HMRC to pay for the public services that we need. So it's a policy that is beneficial for everybody. It's better for businesses and it's better for the Treasury.
Secretary of State, can I pin you down on this issue of the blame game? As I was just discussing there with Liam, the chief UK economist at Deutsche Bank, Sanjay Raja, told the Treasury Select Committee that the unfunded tax cuts were the straw that broke the camel's back. Do you accept that?
Well, I think the context that puts it into does begin to realise that the tax changes are relatively small in the context of the whole thing, that they're about 2% of GDP, and that what I was saying this morning was not a criticism of the Bank of England, but merely a recognition of economic reality, that whenever the US Federal Reserve raises rates, countries that are not raising rates as quickly will see their currencies decline in relation to the dollar. And that always happens. That isn't surprising. It's not a criticism. It recognises different economic realities in different countries, but that is what you would expect to happen.
What some of your own supporters have been saying is that you're politically inept. William Hague in the Times today saying eventually you are going to have to uprate benefits in line with inflation and you're going to be dragged to it. And in the end, you'll get no credit for doing it because you'll be seen to be opposed to doing it. It's getting on a front foot in things like that. He says, and some backbenchers agree with him, are the things that will make a difference to this government. And if you don't do it, you'll fail.
Well, Justin, again, I would say that no decisions have been made, quite simply because...
Yes, but that's the point, isn't it?
No, it's not the point, Justin, as I'm about to explain.
Right.
The Secretary of State for Work and Pensions has to make a decision. That decision is always made in November based on information presented to the Secretary of State for Work and Pensions. And I appreciate some of the machinery of government can be boring. People want decisions made tomorrow when actually the full facts aren't available to the Secretary of State.
But this is a matter of principle. That's the point, isn't it? You're talking about the mechanics, and I quite understand why you are, but what a lot of your backers say, your own supporters, is, hang on a second, this is just principle. We should just say what our principles are, and that is that the poorest people in society should not be at risk from inflation.
Well, our principles are well set out. We'd already spent money to support people with the cost of living, particularly focused on the lowest income in society. As the Prime Minister said as consistently, we will help the vulnerable. But as I say, I appreciate at times the machinery government can be boring, but no definitive statement can be made about changes to benefit rates. Otherwise, of course, we'll end up getting into all sorts of legal cases in a different way as well.
What we've said to those businesses is we want them to keep going. We want them to grow.
Well, that's
we want
good,
them to
but
employ
they need
people.
certainty, don't they? And we've already seen a U-turn on the top rate of tax. So I think what those businesses want to know is, are you going to stick with the plan not to increase corporation tax? Yes or no?
Well, look, the point that we're making is we've got a 70-year high tax burden.
OK,
Things
but that's good. That means those businesses can plan, can't they?
No, it's not good.
No, it's good that you're ruling out the
good.
rise in corporation tax, that there won't be a U-turn on that. That's good for businesses because they need certainty and they need to plan.
So the point that we're making is when you have a 70-year high tax burden, putting up taxes even further is not going to help stimulate economic growth.
These U-turns, they're not a good look, are they?
Well, Richard, no decisions have been made, and I used to do the role of Secretary of State for Work and Pensions, and these decisions were always made in November. So it's sort of news to me that all of a sudden everybody expects us to make decisions ahead of normal practice. But it's important that Chloe Smith has the full evidence in front of her in terms of coming to that conclusion.
Well, I suppose the expectation, let's be honest, is based on the spectacular U-turn that the Prime Minister made a couple of weeks ago. I mean, one day, on a Sunday, she's telling the nation that there's no prospect of a U-turn on the tax reduction at the top rate, and the very next day, we have a U-turn. It's kind of destroyed her credibility, hasn't it?
Well, this was a minor part of the plan for growth. It became a distraction, and meanwhile, we continue to support households with the cost of living challenge.
The criticism of the Prime Minister, I think it's deeply wrong. It's deeply unfair. During the time that she was running for the party leadership, she made it clear that she was going to reduce the tax burden on people and businesses in the UK. She was going to go for growth, and she was going to be absolutely steadfast in support of the Ukrainian defence of their homeland. She is doing exactly what she said she was going to do.
I don't recall her saying she'd tank the economy, Foreign Secretary. I must have been out that day.
Well, Nick, I know it's a lovely soundbite, but the simple fact of the matter is our growth has been higher than predicted. Not as high as we would like, but higher than predicted.
Well,
our interest rates are lower.
Not for August.
Do you have a view on whether those in receipt of benefit should expect that those benefits are uprated in line of inflation? Because your cabinet colleague Penny Mordaunt does, and she thinks they should.
Well, I'm a member of the government. We have a government view. That government view has not yet been established. And my friend Chloe Smith, who has replaced me as Secretary of State for Work and Pensions, will be carefully considering all the evidence that's put to her by officials. And that decision will be announced in November.